How does a single piece of software, one that essentially just shows you a grid of faces, go from a niche business tool to a global verb in less than 90 days? We are told the tech world is a place of slow, calculated growth, but Zoom shattered that myth with the force of a tidal wave. In early 2020, the world stopped. Offices emptied, schools shuttered, and yet, despite the global chaos, one company stayed standing. In fact, it didn't just stand, it soared. While giants like Boeing and Marriott saw their value vanish overnight, Zoom's valuation exploded to over $100 billion. That is more than the top 7 airlines combined. But this wasn't just luck. This was a story of a founder who walked away from a multi-billion-dollar empire because he was unhappy, and a bet on a technology that everyone else thought was already solved. Today, we explore the meteoric rise, the security scandals, and the profound cultural shift of the pandemic unicorn that changed how we look at work, literally. To understand Zoom, we have to understand Eric Yuan. In the late 1990s, Yuan was one of the first engineers at WebEx, the original king of video conferencing. When Cisco bought WebEx for over $3 billion in 2007, Yuan became a vice president. He was at the top of the mountain. But there was a problem. He was miserable. Why? Because every time he talked to a WebEx customer, they were complaining. The software was slow, it required clunky downloads, and it crashed constantly. Yuan spent years begging his bosses at Cisco to let him rebuild the platform from scratch, to make it mobile-friendly and simple. But Cisco, focused on protecting their hardware margins, said no. In 2011, Yuan did the unthinkable. He walked away from his high-paying executive job and a massive team of engineers to start over in a crowded market with nothing but an idea. His mission was simple: make a video tool that actually worked and made users happy. When Yuan started Zoom, investors were skeptical. They told him the market was oversaturated. You had Skype, you had Google Hangouts, you had FaceTime. Why did the world need another one? Yuan's secret weapon was frictionless design. Most video tools at the time were like a complicated puzzle. You needed an account, you needed to download a heavy application, and you needed to pray the firewall didn't block you. Yuan's team obsessive over the small details. They made it so you could join a meeting with just one click, no account required. They engineered the software to work on the weakest Wi-Fi signals by prioritizing audio over video so the call wouldn't drop. This technical obsession created a product that felt like magic. By 2014, Zoom had 10 million users. By 2019, they went public on the NASDAQ, and the stock price surged 72% on the first day. But their biggest test, and the world's biggest crisis, was just months away. March 2020. The world effectively hit the pause button. As lockdowns spread across the globe, the demand for video conferencing didn't just grow, it went vertical. Zoom went from 10 million daily participants in December 2019 to 300 million by April 2020. It was a scale of growth that would have broken almost any other company. Suddenly, Zoom wasn't just for board executives in boardrooms. It was for kindergarten classes, it was for Sunday church services, it was for British cabinet meetings, and it was for Zoom happy hours. The name became a verb, joining the ranks of Google and Xerox. But with this overnight fame came a devastating realization. The platform built for business security was not ready for the chaos of the public internet. The era of Zoom bonging had arrived, and it threatened to destroy the company's reputation as quickly as it had built it. As the world flocked to Zoom, the cracks began to show. Trolls began invading private meetings, shouting obscenities and sharing graphic content. This became known as Zoom bombing. Suddenly, the frictionless nature of the app became its greatest weakness. Security experts discovered that Zoom wasn't using true end-to-end encryption, despite their claims. The company faced a massive backlash, lawsuits, and bans from organizations like NASA and SpaceX. Eric Yuan faced a make-or-break moment. Instead of being defensive, he took a radical path. On April 1, 2020, he announced a 90-day freeze on all new features. The entire engineering team, hundreds of people, stopped working on anything except security and privacy. They bought a security firm called Keybase, they implemented true encryption, and they added the security button that we see on our screens today. It was a masterclass in crisis management, turning a PR disaster into a foundation for long-term trust. By the middle of 2020, Zoom had become more than an app. It was the backbone of a new virtual economy. It proved that the multi-trillion-dollar commercial real estate industry was vulnerable. If a company could function entirely over the internet, why pay for a skyscraper in Manhattan? This shift triggered a massive migration of workers out of expensive cities and into the suburbs. Zoom's success forced every other tech giant to wake up. Microsoft scrambled to save Teams, Google rebranded Hangouts to Meet, and Facebook launched Rooms. But Zoom had a psychological advantage. It was the platform people felt a weird social connection to. It was where they saw their families during the holidays when they couldn't travel. This emotional tie helped Zoom maintain its lead, even as the biggest tech companies in history poured billions of dollars into competing products. As vaccines rolled out and the world began to open back up in 2021, the Zoom boom began to cool. Investors worried that once people returned to the office, Zoom would become a dinosaur. The stock price, which had peaked at nearly $600, began a long and painful decline. The company had to face a new reality, the hybrid work era. Zoom had to evolve from a simple video tool into a full platform. They launched Zoom Phone, Zoom Whiteboard, and AI-powered meeting summaries. They weren't just competing for your video calls anymore, they were competing for your entire workday. The lesson here is a harsh one in business. Catching lightning in a bottle is hard, but keeping that lightning inside the bottle after the storm has passed is even harder. Zoom had to prove it wasn't just a pandemic fluke, but a permanent fixture of modern civilization. What is the legacy of Zoom? It is the story of how a single engineer's obsession with happiness and simplicity disrupted a market controlled by giants. It proved that in the digital age, the smallest amount of friction, a single extra click or a slow load time, is a billion-dollar opportunity for a competitor. Zoom didn't just change how we work, it changed our relationship with geography. It made the distributed team the gold standard for the modern startup. While the stock may never reach those pandemic highs again, the impact is permanent. We live in a world where physical presence is no longer a requirement for intellectual contribution. The business lesson of Zoom is clear. Prioritize the user's experience over everything else, and when the world changes overnight, make sure you are the one holding the door open. Zoom didn't just survive the pandemic, it defined it, and in doing so, it became a permanent part of the human story. I hope this deep dive gave you a new perspective on the strategies and the relentless mindset behind these global icons. If you enjoy deconstructing business empires and tech legends in this Tech Archive style, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. That way, you will never miss a new blueprint of history. For those of you ready to explore more boardroom coups and technological breakthroughs, I have handpicked 2 videos for you right here on the screen. Click one to keep watching. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.